So most people think that reincarnation is a simple cycle. You live, you die, you live, repeat. But the truth is much more complicated. Today, we are going to be talking about 11 surprising truths about reincarnation that nobody ever talks about. We are going to cover everything from how you didn't bring 100% of your energy into this life to the rarely talked about concept of vacation lives. I think we all need to know more about that. So hi, I'm Jillian. I've been studying reincarnation for over 30 years, and I am here to help you apply what I've learned to your life so you can make the most of this lifetime. And we are going on an adventure today. We are even going to be talking about future lives where you can remember your future lives. It shouldn't be possible, and yet it seems to be. But first, we need to talk about how your soul is showing up right now. So truth number one is that the you that is sitting there and the me that is sitting here is not 100% of us. You see, we do not incarnate all of our energy into the physical form. We leave some of it on the other side. So if you're feeling that you've got low energy and you don't know why, it could be because you don't have all of your energy. You see, sometimes we like to get up to a lot of different things. We might be doing extra work on the other side while we're incarnating here on form, or we might actually also be living another life. We will get into that. Additionally, our physical bodies couldn't take 100% of our energy. Our actual energy, our actual selves are immense and powerful, and getting them into physical form can short circuit us out and can be a little bit too much for the nervous system to handle. So for these reasons, we don't bring in all of the energy into our human body. So if you want to connect with the pieces of yourself that are on the other side to get a little extra attention and help and support, you can do that. Just ask. And the second truth that is not very often talked about, and I kind of hinted at it in truth number one, is the concept of split souls. I've also talked about this in one of my shorts as well. Like, how is it that the population can be exploding right now? Are there enough souls to go around? Well, there's many answers to that question, but one of the answers is that we can split our souls. So, as I said before, we don't bring in 100% of our energy. This is not all of us. In order to double up and to try to make as much progress as you possibly can and to make use of all these extra bodies that are around on the planet, we can also choose to split our souls and go through 2 incarnations simultaneously. Now, that said, it's not as common from everything that I've researched and learned. It does take a lot of energy. Because think about it, you still have to leave some of you on the other side. So let's say you leave 20% of yourself on the other side and you decide to do 2 different lives. That means you got 40% and 40%, we'll say. So if you only have 40% of yourself in this body and 40% of yourself in another body, that just makes it a little extra challenging to have that low of an energy. So again, if you're struggling with low energy, it might be because you're busy over in Asia or Thailand or South Africa or someplace else. And number 3, I think this one is fascinating. Midlife soul swaps, sometimes called walk-ins. The concept that a body can start with one soul and end with another soul. This sounds a little terrifying, but no, this does not happen against your will. Essentially, it's when perhaps a life is particularly hard and the soul decides, I don't really want to go through this. I mean, we've all been there, right? Sometimes the soul just says, no, I really don't want to go through this anymore. Let me out. And so what will happen is the universe will bring in a new soul so that we're not wasting the body, because life is a precious gift. And so the new soul can make use of the body and the memories that exist and move forward with that. You see this particularly in the case of near-death experiences or comas, something that has actually caused the soul to leave the body. And on the other side, they say, no, I don't want to go back. And so another soul may choose to make use of the body. Again, not very common, but you will hear sometimes after a coma or a near-death experience, people will be like, this is a totally different person. They have different tastes, different interests, different personality. This very well could be because another soul came in and took the reins, as it were. And truth number 4 that is not often talked about is that when we have a life where we develop an immense amount of judgment and hatred towards a particular type of people, a particular race, maybe the wealthy, or perhaps it's a particular nation or religion that you have a lot of animosity, judgment, and hate towards. Well, when that happens, the universe says, hey, let's give you a chance to expand your understanding of humanity, and you incarnate into that religion, class, nationality, etc., so that you can understand what that lived experience is. Part of our purpose here in physical form is to understand the entirety of the human experience and have compassion and acceptance that we are living our lives the best we can. And sometimes we are hot messes and we don't do a great job. By incarnating into that type of person that you have so much lack of understanding for, it gives you a chance to deepen your understanding of how humanity works overall. And number 5, one of the things that I'll talk about when I talk about reincarnation is before we come into form, we plan out our lives and we plan out the family and the family dynamics that we are going to incarnate into, because it sets the stage for us to learn and experience different patterns, different challenges, different opportunities, etc. But we don't only do that on the family level, we also do that on the national and the cultural level. So for example, in the United States, which is where I have chosen to incarnate on, the US itself has different soul lessons. If you would think about the soul of a nation, soul lessons that it's going through. So as I and other Americans chose to incarnate into this nation, it's because there was also something about those lessons that we were going to be able to find helpful in our personal growth, or that we wanted to participate in the evolution of this particular national soul lesson. In the case of the US, we're talking about power, right? The US is a very powerful country, but we're learning how to use power ethically and compassionately. And you can make your own calls on how we're doing on that front. Freedom, individual rights, diversity. This is also a huge, from the beginning, the foundation of the nation, a huge storyline and lesson that we process through over and over and over in a variety of different challenges, wars, ways, protests, etc. that we are learning. And value. Obviously, we think about the US and we think about capitalism and how important money is. We then begin to look at the value of things, the value of a human being, the value of money, and so that hopefully eventually we will learn and understand our own inherent value, and that it isn't about money, that who we are goes beyond money. Anyway, I could go on about national soul lessons. If that's something that you would like me to do a video on, drop a comment down below and I'll dig into it. But let's move on to number 6, because it is sort of related. As I talked about, we choose the families, we choose the nation, the culture, etc. that we incarnate into. As part of that as well, the families that we incarnate into, we can do healing through the ancestral line. You may have heard of this. For me, it seems a little odd. I'm still having my own challenges on trying to understand how this works, but the concept is, as you do healing on yourself, it spreads both through the future and through the past. As you heal the dynamics, the dysfunctional dynamics that you have inherited through the family line, because it gets passed down genetically, spiritually, energetically, societally, etc., it gets passed down to us, these dysfunctions around communication, these dysfunctions around love, these dysfunctions around how we value ourselves or how we expect ourselves to show up, etc. As we do healing on ourselves around those particular wounds that have been passed through our family, we also heal backwards. We also heal through time. Wild, right? So that as you are healing, you're also helping out your great grandma Betty and your Uncle Bob. So number 7 goes right on the heels of number 6. And this is, healing is not linear. Healing goes through time. So as I was talking about with the family line, as you heal these family wounds, these family dysfunctions, it goes back generations. This is also true for you personally. As you heal yourself, you heal past selves and you heal future selves. You heal it all at the same time. And I will admit, this is one that I have a little hard time wrapping my head around because I like to think of things very linearly. I am very human in that regard. So when we start talking about the fluidity of time, it kind of breaks my brain. And how is it that healing can go backwards? I don't know. I can't explain how it works physically, scientifically, etc. But I do know this is something that in my studies around reincarnation and the afterlife, I've come across this over and over again. So, I mean, good news. As you're healing yourself today, you're helping yourself out from a few years ago and a couple lifetimes in the future. You're benefiting in like 360 degrees. Number 8, you can remember future lives. This is the one that I talked about at the top of the video. And it dovetails very nicely on what we've been talking about. Time is non-linear. I read about this analogy once and it makes a lot of sense to me. If you think about life as a book and you are right now reading your story on a particular page and you're going through the story, that's where your awareness and your consciousness is on the story on that page. But all those pages, all those storylines exist on a variety of different pieces of paper in the book all at the same time. That's the best I can do to wrap my mind around this non-linear time. I'm not a quantum physicist. You can remember future lives. There are books out there. Brian Weiss, for example, has written a book that includes regressions that he has done from future lives. And you can learn what people are reporting about their future lives. A couple of common things that have come through from the future life stories that I have read that I think are interesting is the world is a little bit hotter. Not surprised about that. We're seeing the direction things are going. Also, apparently there is some sort of energy healing that happens in the future that uses a rod. I like to think it might be a rod like this type of a crystal. I don't know, but it's some sort of a rod that is being used in energy healing. It's come up in a few future lives regressions. I'm really curious to see how that ends up playing out. But that said, you can access your future lives through regression. And number 9, and this is one that I don't think we're all very excited about, but life is meant to be challenging. That is the purpose of it. It isn't that we're doing things wrong if life is challenging. No, it means you're doing things right. We come into form to be challenged so that we learn and grow. That is the game. That is the exercise. That is the homework that we're working through, is through these resistances, these challenges. And that's how we grow and make the most of this whole reincarnation gig. That said, there doesn't need to be suffering. There's a difference between being challenged and suffering. Suffering is a mind state. It's a reaction. It's how you're coming to the challenge. It's how you're coming to the life experience. And part of our growth work is to figure out how to experience these challenges without having to deal with the suffering aspect of it. Because we don't want to suffer and we don't have to suffer. We did not come here to suffer. And number 10. I'm going to be careful with my words here, just because this is a heavy, heavy topic. But when one voluntarily opts out of life, if you know what I'm saying, it is a reset. I have a whole video about it, which I will link to down below and at the end of the video, where I really go through all of the mechanics of what happens after somebody exits voluntarily and what they can expect afterwards, or what your loved one has experienced afterwards, etc. The bottom line, the core of it, is that it is hitting the reset button. You see, you came into life, you had all of these challenges lined up, and sometimes, and usually, they're very, very hard. And so sometimes it's just easier to pop out than to go through them. But when we do that, when we pop out, it's like, okay, well, I didn't finish my class, right? It's like leaving the term midway through. You have to go back to the beginning of the class and start it all over again. That's why it's not a great option, is because you might as well make use of the work that you've already done and just finish it out. Just buckle up, take a deep breath, find your resources, find your people, find whatever it is you can to get yourself through life, because otherwise you just have to go through it all over again. And my goodness, that sounds awful, right? But at least that takes us to number 11, which is my favorite reincarnation truth that nobody talks about, and that's vacation lives. Sometimes there are people in my life that I'm like, honey, please pick a vacation life next time, because you had a hard enough life this time. And essentially, like, everybody knows on the other side that Earth is a really hard school. It is really hard to be a human being. And when we go through particularly difficult, challenging, draining lives, sometimes we just need a break. And we get to incarnate into a life that's easy and pleasurable and joyful, and we don't line up a whole bunch of challenges and a whole bunch of lessons. It's just to give us a chance to be in human form and to enjoy the aspects of being human that we can enjoy. Now, that doesn't mean the people that you look around that are wealthy have easy vacation lives or they don't have any challenges. We often don't see what's going on with people internally or what their life story has been. So let's not make any assumptions about that. But if you're a person that has had a really, really, really hard life this time, start planning out where you want to go on vacation in your next lifetime. So that is something really good to keep in mind if you are struggling with a really hard, challenging life. But what actually happens when somebody decides to exit early? What is awaiting them on the other side? How does the other side react to it? How do they feel about their choice? Well, I cover all of that in this video right here, where you can get the mechanics of what really happens after suicide. On that note, see you in the next one.